Right? And I'm not playing no games.
Hey, I'm Pops, and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons Popspective X-Men animated series. And after this, we'll be doing Batman animated series in a half hour. So let's do it. 1992, the classic, right? Oh gosh, this is so good. Last week was a little bit of a weaker episode, right? Some of you may not be real happy with me dogging on it a little bit. The Unstoppable Juggernaut episode was a little loosey with the dialogue, had some issues, but this, woo, talk about ripped right out of the comic book lore and bringing you really into hardcore X-Men, from recapping some of the issues from the last episodes with Cable and the scientists and development of the collars in the Slave Island episode on Genosha. And man, Cable is literally the walking embodiment of John Wayne, right? Next time you take a shot at someone, make sure you hit him. I mean, that is literally almost verbatim classic John Wayne lines, right? Of course, he's breaking in. He's looking for Godfrey Adler, the scientist that's done these collars. It's the interaction and introduction of Warren Worthington, this extremely wealthy dude in Scotland who basically is Angel. And the story is kind of like a two-parter, right? So it's going to be the first one's called The Cure. The second one is called Come to Apocalypse, right? Because you have sort of like a little bit of some stuff going on with Adler and a little bit of stuff. By the way, Maura McTaggart, her accent, wow, is it thick in the show. I forgot how bad that accent. Wow. Woo, that was crazy. I don't know it's supposed to be that thick or not, but hey, that's what they went for, right? The professor gets a little tease, and I love the foreshadowing for a mature audience with the mind probe where he sees Mystique and Apocalypse, right? Not really Adler. He really sees something different. And that is truly what is happening here, right? That upon investigation, Professor lets them know through a video message, that, there's this scientist and he thinks he has a cure. You wouldn't have to be a mutant. And you have sort of like some back and forth about that. But really the story centers around Rogue. Rogue's like, well, listen, I don't know that I want to do this. I'd like to be able to actually have physical contact with someone, right? So he volunteers to undergo this experiment. This is literally like, there's a tie directly to a comic book. I had to look it up, make sure I got the issue right. Uncanny X-Men 185, which is her kissing a boy and nearly killing him, right? So in the cartoon, it's called, his name is Cody. On Muir Island, where all of this is taking place, you end up meeting Pyro and Avalanche. Obviously, this is the Mystique thing. There's some elements here that get very, Scooby-Doo-ish and contrived monologuing and those kinds of things. But reality is, at the crux of the day, it's like, you have to figure out what you want to be, who you really are, and be comfortable in your own skin, right? And Rogue realizes that there's some things here that may not be quite right. And she ends up realizing that this may not be what she wants to do right now. The audience sees Cable and sees, obviously, confronting Adler, who's obviously Mystique. She's working for Apocalypse. This is all going on really well. Now, then, of course, you have Angel, and Angel is going to the scientist, Adler, who's Mystique. So I want to be changed. So the second part, episode 10, Come the Apocalypse, is basically Angel is, make me a new man, right? He's going to hook himself up to the machine and be transformed. And literally at the last second, right before it happens, you get Mystique revealing herself, right? And word's gotten out that the other mutants are starting to arrive on Muir Island. So you have some of the ones that were Morlocks in the earlier episode, right? So you had Plague, for example, right? And, Warren runs in. It's like, I'm cured. I don't have wings, whatever. Obviously, it's all fake, right? It was Mystique. He's been transformed into Archangel, right? This creature, this part of the four horsemen that Apocalypse has come up with, right? And this is ripped right out of the X Factor comic books. Great stories, deals with the Marauders, some really, really good stuff. Actually, a really good arc there with some of these issues over the course of about a year. And basically, you end up with Apocalypse and these four mutant, and actually, there's like a newscaster who calls them mutant terrorists, basically attacking, right? And you have different ones that correlate to the four horsemen of the apocalypse, completely raining terror down, destroying the French army, Xavier is like, oh man, this is exactly what I was afraid of, right? And there's no reasoning with someone like this. This is not like Magneto. This is someone who this is something that's just pure evil. And I got to be honest, the fight and the attack gets completely crazy, and it's absolutely awesome, right? Now, what also happens is Rogue goes back to this lab and gets a hold of Adler, who again is Mystique. And when strapped down on the table to do the experimentation, transforms and reveals herself and says, Apocalypse is behind everything. I didn't have a choice, blah, blah, blah. But of course, Rogue escapes in time, but Mystique shoots her, destroys the machine, and the whole thing, right? By the way, there's a great Wolverine line. He does get a good line. It's not always, they don't always, but so they're there trying to fight the Apocalypse and the horsemen, and they're like, Cyclops like, be careful with the civilians, and Wolverine's like, yeah, sure, I'll try not to bruise them while I'm saving them. I just laughed. That's a great line. This show is so on point with the feel in the X universe of the comic books that we love so much. And the battle kind of culminates, obviously, with the X-Men versus Apocalypse at Stonehenge, and then basically he just leaves. You basically get all of the things that you want out of like a first introduction of Apocalypse, right? He is evil. Everyone needs to be exterminated, things like that. And he's just completely out of control before he flies away, realizing that he has been defeated by the X-Men, right? This is a great capture of Archangel and Apocalypse and the Horsemen and different mutants, and showing the powers and the emotional struggle of should they stay a mutant, should they not. And the fantastic adaptation in this little storyline here. And of course, then we go right into the next week. We'll be doing Days of Future Past, right? There's a 2-part follow-up, Days of Future Past. Another great comic book art. When they made this show, they were like, listen, we're going to adapt some of our best stuff. We're going to get people hooked on these characters. We're going to get people wanting to buy these comic books. They're going to want to buy action figures. They're going to be immersed into the X universe. And this show was so good at that. So tell me what you think. If you love this show as much as I do, hopefully that you're rewatching, enjoying it with me. You're enjoying getting up on Saturday morning and having cartoon talk, which is always just takes me back to the days, man, when I just, every day watching cartoons, man, it's the best. It's the best. So I've enjoyed this. I sure hope you do as well. I'm Pops. I love your comments and thoughts. If you want to do more, subscribe to the channel, whatever. Also, just remember, every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 Eastern, Batman animated series. There'll be one coming up right after this. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And again, I am Pops.